All right, let's go ahead and get started. I think it's about 5 minutes past. So, first of all, thank you everybody for coming to the to this commercial real estate AI and commercial real estate program. And I want to thank Michael Hironimus for jumping on and giving us a little taste of how we can implement AI into our business. Michael's a commercial real estate strategist and AI innovator with 20 plus years of experience in investment analysis, portfolio management, and technology integration. He's a senior instructor for the CCIM Institute, where he teaches market analysis, that's CI 102, and leads efforts on technology and curriculum advancement. Michael's the creator of Implementing AI in CRE, a practical guide. It's a course designed to equip professionals with real-world AI applications in commercial real estate. He also leads Duckridge Realty Advisors, specializing in portfolio and asset management for high net worth investors. A respected educator, speaker, and advisor, Michael is helping shape the future of commercial real estate through data-driven strategy, automation, and AI adoption. So without further, I'll hand it over to Michael. And Michael.
Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate it. And thanks to Sarasota Realtors for having me. I really appreciate that. I used to live in Fort Myers, so I know the area pretty well, and went to school there. And yeah, so thanks for having me. I'd love to come back at some point. Especially in the wintertime. I'd love to come down in the wintertime when it's cloudy and rainy and wondering where the sun's at. So thanks for having me again. Yeah, today we'll talk about AI, and what I'm thinking is that we'll keep it kind of fluid in terms of asking questions, where you want it to go, the direction. If you have any questions along the way when I'm talking about some of the tools, feel free to chime in, and we'll just keep it a conversation. But just wanted to sort of take it from a high level view, and then we'll bring it down into some individual tools that I think are important to know as commercial real estate practitioners. I was just talking yesterday. I was giving a presentation yesterday to all the CCIM instructors. We were in Minneapolis. I just got in last night, and I'm sort of going to start the same way a little bit, where I talk about, one of the most important things is the idea of being able to talk to AI. And that comes with prompting techniques. And so I'll show a few of those to you today, along with some of the tools like I mentioned. But the best analogy that I've ever heard, and I use over and over again, and I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I can't think of a better one, especially for us, is thinking of AI as an intern or a junior broker, or somebody who is the smartest person that you've ever met, has been trained on the entire internet, all the white papers, all the videos, all of the websites and content, but they're kind of dumb. They're kind of dumb in a way that they don't know exactly what it is that you want. They're not necessarily professionals in real estate. They haven't gone through the deals falling apart and all the war stories and all those things. So we need to be able to talk to it and get the best output that we can, because if you don't have good inputs, you don't have good in outputs. In financial analysis, we talk about garbage in, garbage out. If you have garbage numbers to put in, you're going to get garbage numbers out. And it's the same way with AI in a lot of ways. We're still at a point where we need to make sure that we structure it well. And I'll talk about some of those structures. And also think through on our own side. Some of the techniques that I'm going to be teaching you actually forces you to think through, okay, what is it exactly that I'm trying to accomplish here? because sometimes we forget about those things. And so it's important to be specific. So let's talk a little bit about some of the prompting techniques that we have. And I'll show my screen here. Hopefully everybody's seeing my screen. Good, thumbs up. Thanks, David. The first one I wanted to talk about was few shot prompting. And few shot prompting is where you show the AI what it is exactly that you're trying to do, given it examples. Um, so really what LLMs are, large language models, you're talking about ChatGPT, you're talking about Google Gemini, Claude from Anthropic, they're all just statistical machines. Each word on this page right here would be broken up into words or parts of words called tokens. And what they've done is they've made statistical machines where the token, whatever token comes after another token, statistically is how they structure out sentences. So when you think about it in those terms, it's not wizardry, it's not magic, it's not some sentient being, it's just statistical machines. I always think of the sort of the plinko things at the at the arcades or anything. You drop a thing and it hits all the things and goes down and it plinkos. Well, there's a bell curve of where it was going to land. Every once in a while, statistically, it will go off the rails, and those are called hallucinations in AI. And you have to be aware of hallucinations. They do occur. The latest research is showing that most of the large language models are hallucinating at a rate of 1% to 2%, depending on the model and how you're utilizing it. But 1% to 2% of the time, it can give you false outputs. And it can also be very it can be very sure about its bad outputs, and it can tell you that, hey, this is really what it is when it's really not what it is. So we have to be aware of that. We have to double check our work. But few shot prompting in that way really mimics how LLMs work. It's about creating patterns, and patterns are fantastic for us. It's fantastic for AIs. And so when we're working with AI, it's good to give it some examples of what you've utilized in the past. So for example, if you're trying to write a property description for a commercial real estate listing, you tell the AI, hey, I want to create this property description. Here's some that I've utilized in the past, or if you've got a framework maybe that your company uses, or perhaps you've seen somebody else's flyer or offering memorandum, and you go, wow, that sounds pretty good. You can copy and paste that in and put it in as examples. I want something that is like this. So if I go, and I'll just use Google Jetting in CRE, and let's see what it comes up with. And so to wait a second. And what I really like is the new technique. It's not new, but the technique that I really like to use is thinking of ways to get prompts. A lot of times I'm kind of lazy. I'll be honest with you. And I like to use AI to prompt AI. And I will do that. And this is not exactly what I want. Let's use a different one here. We'll use ChatGPT. Please give me a good example of few shot prompting. And so it'll give you an example. So here's one, review, classify the reviews. And I give, a whole bunch of examples here. And, so that's basically what it is. I'm giving it examples. I want it to replicate those examples and I want it to move on. And that's a good way to do it so that you can make sure that your output is structured exactly like the other examples that you have. Self-consistency is one of those things that sort of will help you with hallucinations. And self-consistency forces the AI to think through the problem in multiple ways. So what I'll do is you can do it one of two ways. You can either ask it a question. For example, what is the vacancy rate for office space in the Tampa Bay market? Let's just say that. And so it'll search the web and it'll hopefully grab the right amount. It'll use what's available. This is using Cushman Wakefield's market beat report. Overall vacancies 20%. Collier's got it at 14%. And so the self-consistency would say, I would write the exact same question again. What is the vacancy rate for the Tampa Bay office market? I did say office, right? I think I did. And you'd want to have it do it again and give you an output. The other way to do it, and so you're starting to get consistency. Okay, it's grabbing the same thing again. It's 20.2%. It went out, did it again. And so what we're trying to do is make sure it's not hallucinating. The other thing that you can do is you can give, tell me what the best way to structure an offering memorandum. Give me 3 examples of templates. And what you're doing is you're giving it options, but you're also forcing it to think through like 3 different times. So the best way to structure an offering memorandum, it'll go through that process, give me the best way, the best outline. And then what it'll do, hopefully, is it will do it again. And then it will do it again. And you can start to see the consistencies through there. And once again, that's just a way to limit perhaps some hallucinations. If you're dealing with data, if you're dealing with anything that's sort of critical, self-consistency is a great way to do that. And so it'll go through that whole process there. Another one is iterative prompting. And iterative prompting is really just additional prompting to narrow what it is you're trying to accomplish. So the example I have here is a summary of real estate market report for Austin, Texas. But what you're trying to do is put on guardrails. And that's a lot of the time what prompting really is putting on guardrails so that it doesn't go off and give you, incomplete or bad data. And so iterative prompting is sort of narrowing it down, what it is I want to do. And that's through follow-up prompts. So, if I say, here, I'll just actually copy and paste this one into my example. I'll use a new, I don't know why I'm not logged in here, but I do pay for this, by the way. I do pay for ChatGPT. Of course. And I gotta verify. Well, let's see. Sorry about this. I was on a flight and I took my computer with me, and I think when I unplugged and then replugged in, it sort of kicked me out here. So okay. Now we should be good. So anyway, I'm going to copy and paste this in. And then the iterative process is I want to start to narrow this down a bit. So when I put it in, summarize the market in the Austin area, it's going to go through, it's going to search, it's going to utilize the web to do that. And, it gives you some good stuff, but maybe that's not exactly what I want. I actually want to provide more specific details on factors driving demand for office. I didn't really tell it office, right? I just sort of put it out there. And so it's going to give me a very broad sort of idea on it. Now I want to focus more in on, the office market and also some of the specific details driving demand. So I'm talking about not only demand, but also office specifically. And so what I'm doing is I'm narrowing the results. I'm really bringing it down, and you can continue to narrow it. Now I really only want to know about I really want to really only want to understand medical office space in Austin. And so I'm narrowing it down again. Instead of office, now I want it to focus on medical office. And the other thing is you can add in, details, what it is I want it to actually come out with. And so this is a great way to understand markets, sort of really get granular, if you will, start that iterative process. Once again, continue to refine and get it closer to what you want as an output. The other prompting technique that I think, kind of brings it all together. It's the best one that I've found, I believe, that is really comprehensive, and it's called the Rhodes structure. I did not come up with this. I found this on the internet with somebody, and I've used it over and over again, and I found it's one of the best prompt structures that you can have for AI across all the LLMs. I feel like it's one of the best. And so ROAD stands for role. You're defining what the AI should be. And at the very beginning of this, I talked about interns, right? Imagine you've got a whole bunch of interns, thousands of interns in your office hallway. And what you want to do is you want to go out and you want to grab one of those interns that are specialized in a certain thing. And that's essentially what you're doing with the role, the R in this, is you're going out, you're grabbing that very specific intern to be able to come in and answer questions for you. And so when you're a role, maybe it's a market analysis expert, a financial analysis expert, a expert on, medieval, medieval, metal working. It doesn't matter. You're grabbing a very specific role. And so if you can define that role, it really helps. The next thing is the objective. What's the goal? I think this is just as important for the human side as it is for the AI side, because it forces you to say, yeah, what is the very specific thing I'm trying to accomplish here? When we're in real estate, the thing I believe that we're best at is solving problems and answering questions. And so really the objective is, what questions am I trying to answer? And so if you think about it in that respect, it really helps drive that objective, really helps drive the specificity of your prompt. The next thing is D, which are details. So any details that are required, if you're talking about market analysis, I want vacancy, I want occupancy, I want absorption, I want rental rates, I want, and be very specific about the details of the things that you want as outputs, what aspects of it. E is examples, just like the few shot prompting, we could use examples of things that we've had in the past. So once again, if you're, let's say, doing marketing, you're trying to create, an offering memorandum or something along those lines, you can copy and paste perhaps some elements of pieces of the offering memorandum that you've used in the past that you really like. And so you can copy and paste those in as examples. Hey, here's some examples of things that we've done, and go along. And then the last S is sense check. And it's almost as if it sounds kind of weird, but you're asking the AI, does this make sense? Or do the directions that I've given you make sense to you? I would say the exact same thing to an intern, wouldn't I? Before I let them walk away and go do whatever it is I wanted them to do for me, I would say, do you understand what I'm trying to accomplish here, or what we're trying to do? They would say a yes, or maybe they would follow up with additional questions to sort of narrow down and refine what it is you're trying to do. And so the sense check is really, really a good sort of idea with this Rhodes structure. So, here's an example that I give. An R, you're a seasoned real estate marketing expert. The O, the objective, what we're trying to do. Your task is to write a compelling property description for Class A office space in downtown Chicago. We want to target tech companies. The D, the description should highlight buildings' modern amenities. I want the proximity to public transit. I want flexible floor plans. I want to keep the tone professional but engaging in a maximum of 200 words. So I'm really putting those guardrails on and really defining and drilling down into what it is I'm trying to accomplish. Here's some examples. I've give an example of things that I've done in the past. And then the final S, do you understand the task and guidelines? Okay. And AI is either going to come back and say, can you please refine what it is you're saying here? Or it says, yes, I understand, and spits out an output. So that's really the Rhodes chain of thought, or I'm sorry, the Rhodes prompting structure. And it works really well, in my opinion. You can also use other AIs to create Rhodes prompts. So for example, when I don't always necessarily do that structure on my own. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll say, I'm trying to do market analysis on industrial properties. If I could type this morning, in the Sarasota market for industrial. Oh, I already said industrial. For the Sarasota market. Give me a Rhodes prompting structure that would help define a comprehensive report. Let's just say that. I'm shooting from the hip here, all right? But what I do is I use ChatGPT or any of the prompting structures or any of the LLMs to give me a prompting structure that I can then copy and paste into an LLM. So here's the road, so the role, and it's giving us all this. So market analysis expert, and it knows exactly what this prompting structure is. Here's my objectives, here's my details. And so then what it does is it gives me a prompt that I can actually use. And what I'll do is I'll look at this and okay, are these the things that I want? I want vacancy absorption. Yeah. I want asking rents, rent growth. Good. I want key tenant drivers. Fantastic. Owner user trends. And if any one of these things is off, I can use that iterative prompting structure to go, you know what? I don't necessarily need this, or I want to make sure that these are correct, or whatever it is. Here's examples. Here's sense check. So this all looks good, and then it gives me a final Rhodes prompt structure. Well, what am I going to do with that? Well, I'm going to copy and paste this prompting structure into a new chat. And so I didn't really have to think through. It gave me the structure that I needed. I could go through once again and edit it, refine it how I need it, and then use this. This would have taken me quite a bit of time to come up with, I got to be honest. But using AI to train or prompt AI is one of the best tools that I can think of in terms of, just being thorough and understanding. So here's my prompt. I can copy and paste this in to the prompt to a new chat, and now I'm off to the races. And it should give me a good output based on that Rhodes structure. Okay. The last one that I'll talk to you about, there's a few more, but of the basic ones are chain of thought theory, or chain of thought prompting structures. And it's basically this way where it mimics, it gives you this idea where you can go step by step by step through a process. It actually is very similar to the way we think in a lot of ways. If I'm thinking I want to do, a market analysis report, and thinking through the ideas, okay, what is it that I need in order to come up with a comprehensive market analysis report, for example? And so, internally, I'll think, okay, I need this. Do I need this? I don't know if I need this. And that's essentially what you're doing with the AI. You're forcing it to think through these processes. And so what I'll say is, I'll give it a role still. I'll say, you're a financial expert. I'm considering, please walk me through the steps you would take to assess such factors. So what I'm doing is I'm forcing it to take step-by-step examples as a response. And then what I can do is I can iterate those responses as I see fit and go through that chain of thought process. The other thing is the new, I say new, but they've been around for a bit, are some of the models that they've put out are chain of thought reasoning models. What you'll notice with ChatGPT specifically is that they've got two models. I was using their 4.0, which I probably use a majority of the time. 4.0 is just, and it might be slightly different if you don't pay for ChatGPT. Maybe it's their, I don't remember what model the free version is. I apologize. But 4.0 is kind of just their basic. If I want answers pretty fast, it'll give me back the answers that I need as long as I prompt it well, right? The other model that they have is called the O3 model, and you'll notice it uses advanced reasoning. So if I give it a prompting structure that's a reasoning, it uses chain of thought reasoning to give me an output. It will actually think through, and a lot of times, let's say I want to build an outline of an a class that I want to teach on AI. Let's just say that I want to build an outline. So let's think through the steps. Let's think through the steps. Let's think through the steps. I'll just say that. Of course, I'm shooting from the hip here. So what you'll notice is that it says it's thinking, which is thinking. You have to sort of put in quotes a little bit, because what it is it's using this chain of thought. It's iterating a process where it thinks, okay, what is it that I need to do in order to accomplish this task? And so what it did was it thought, and once again, I'll put thought in quotation marks because it doesn't think, it's a statistical model. But it says, okay, the user is asked to build a class outline, and they want to think through the steps. It looks like they're doing this. However, they haven't quite triggered. This seems like, the funny part about this is if you read some of the thought process, it uses very natural language, which would it hums to itself. This seems like it might require that we follow up. The user wants this, and we need to clarify. So now it's going to actually work with me and go through the steps, and it's going to ask me questions that I'm going to want to answer. And that's so that it dives deeper through this chain of thought reasoning process, and it will give me a better output. So this gives me sort of it's almost prompting me, if you will. It's prompting me, who's going to attend? What's the course length? Is it in person, virtual, or hybrid? What are the goals? What are you trying to do? And so this goes through this process of this chain of thought, which is really helpful. Gemini also has two. They've got the 2.5 Pro. And once again, I apologize if it's a little different on a free version. I forget. I do pay for Gemini as well. The Flash is similar to the 4.0 in ChatGPT. And then once again, they've got the 2.5 Pro reasoning model, which is their advanced chain of thought reasoning. So those are the things. Also, on top of that, what they have is they have these deep research functionality. And deep research is if you really want to take a deep dive into something. For deep research, also on the AI side, you can use the tools here, and you can run a deep research also through any of their tools that they have. Claude, I believe, does the same thing. So does, I've got Claude. I don't pay for Claude, but I would, Claude is a fantastic model that I use. I love Claude. And just talking about the strengths and weaknesses, I would say, everybody asks me, which one should I do? Which one should I pay for? ChatGPT is sort of the gold standard, I would say, at this point. Only in brand recognition. I wouldn't say it's a gold standard, like it's the best model, hands down. I wouldn't say that at all. But it is the gold standard in terms of, what it is that people know. It's sort of ubiquitous with, if you're doing a web search, you say, I'm going to Google something, right? It's become synonymous with web research, or Kleenex has become synonymous with, facial tissue. You almost say, I'm gonna, it's Chat GPT. Even sometimes when you're not using Chat GPT, you'll say, oh, well, let's talk to Chat GPT or some, it's kind of become synonymous with that. But Chat GPT has done a really good job with utilizing AI and tools. For example, GPTs or custom GPTs. They've got the ability to integrate tools. This is brand new, by the way. Being able to integrate some of the other tools that are available. For example, I can connect ChatGPT now with my Outlook. So if I want to ask any questions of maybe emails I've received, or to reply to an email in the same tone that I've used with them, maybe it's a different tone than I use with somebody else, right? You can do that. I've also connected my HubSpot, which is my CRM, so I can ask it for it to research and come back with perhaps folks that I haven't reached out to in 6 months, those sorts of things. ChatGPT has done a really good job of utilizing the tools that it has available to it. And of course, you can upload and use it from apps. Here's from the apps that I'm talking about: Google Drive, One, and so forth. Google Gemini, on the other hand, I pay for this as well. You can't go wrong with Google Gemini either. Their models are as good, maybe even slightly better. At one point I was using ChatGPT maybe 80% of the time. Now I'm probably about 50-50. I'll click on Google Gemini nearly as much as I do on ChatGPT. What I like about Google Gemini is that it's all integrated into Google's suite of tools. So it connects obviously to Google Drive, but it also does really great with their mapping functionality. They've got some really good video if you want to analyze any YouTube videos, because Google's part of YouTube. Once again, I really like Google when I'm trying to do location analysis. For example, please give me all of the, let's say, uh, sporting goods stores within Sarasota, Florida. Oops. And I'll just do that. And what it'll do is it'll utilize Google Maps, and you'll see that it pops up right here, and you can see the thinking of what it's doing. So it's utilizing those tools, and then it'll give you a list of all of the places. I love this if you want to find out, like maybe do some void analysis in an area. Google Gemini is fantastic for that. If you want to find out, once again, maybe some of your competitors in the area. So it's given me all of the sporting goods stores in Sarasota, Florida. And this is based off of Google Maps, so it's usually pretty accurate. I would say more accurate than any other tools. There's Dick's Sporting Goods, there's Play It Again Sports, Fleet Feet, and and then it'll give you a Google Maps that you can take a look at and see exactly where they're at. And so that's really one of the great functionalities that I like about Google Gemini in particular. They're also tops with creating video at this point. They just came out with brand new VO 3. If you got the free version, you got VO 2. But you can drop in images and create video off of those images, or you can just prompt it in a way. And I will say, prompting for images and video, I do teach it in my course, but you have to prompt differently, slightly differently, in order to get very good outputs with videos and images. But anyway, video is fantastic. I would play around with it if you have the opportunity. Just make something fun and just see what it does. It's very cool. Claude is another large language model that is, pretty much at the top. They've got, several different, platforms as well, different models. They can also utilize tools. So, if you upgrade, you can connect to your Gmail, you can connect to your calendar. They're doing a lot of the same things of adding those connectors in there, which is fantastic. I think Claude probably gives the best output in terms of copy or writing. If I'm writing and I want to get creative in a certain way, I'll come to Claude. I think it's one of the best. It's also really good at what's called vibe coding as well. If I want to create some maybe applications, I think Claude is one of the best ones for that. So Claude is another one that I really like. Um, there's Grok, which is with Twitter or X, X. This is the one that is good. If you own a Tesla, you're going to have Grok in it pretty soon. They're integrating all those things into it. I like Grok if it does do very good research, I would say, so deep research. But if you go to Grok and if you pay for, X, you have a subscription, you get automatically the updated model with Grok. Um, Grok is connected to Twitter, obviously, or X, and their suite of things. So if I want up to date, real time information, Grok is fantastic for that because it goes out, it searches through X, and it will come back with very up to date information. Once again, it does a deep research. It does very good deep research, in my opinion. It's also a thinking model, so that's the reasoning, that chain of thought process we were talking about. So there's different ones, and it's not as good with the tools, but once again, if you want up to date current information that's curated from the web and also from all of the people that are talking on X, right? They're giving information back and forth. It grabs that information. Um, there's several other ones. There's DeepSeek, and there's I'm blanking on the French one. But anyway, there's a number of them out there. But those I would say are the main four. The other one that I really enjoy is called Perplexity. I don't know if you've had a chance to work with Perplexity. Another large language model. This one was connected to the internet before any of the other ones were. This is, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now. But Perplexity came out, and they were the first one to really change the way we researched information on the internet. It went out and grabbed the internet. In the past, what we did was when we wanted to Google something, we would go in, it would give us a list of websites, and you'd have to click into the website, and you'd have to try to find the information, right? That was the old way of searching. What Perplexity did and totally turned it on its head, it would go out, grab those websites again, but instead it would curate all that information and then bring back that information, whatever it is we were trying to accomplish. And they've only continued to go down that path and create better tools. They've created these things called labs, which are these interactive dashboards. So if I want to create, a lab on employment data in a certain area, I can create an interactive dashboard where maybe I can filter by, industry type, or I can filter by, time of, by year or something like that. They make fantastic dashboards for doing that, curating all that information, bringing it back in a really comprehensive way. So here's the deep research that they have on the functionality. And then once again, here's that labs. Once they came out with labs, I actually ended up paying for Perplexity because I like that functionality so well. But you can check it out and see on that one. The last one, and I apologize, I've got so much more information, but I'm running up against time here. The other one that I really enjoy is Notebook, and you know, Notebook. I hesitate to say a large language model because it's actually integrated with Google Gemini, but they've done something very specific with Notebook. And so if you pay for Note, which is a great aspect of paying for a Gemini, is that you get an upgraded version of Notebook LM also. Notebook LM has been specifically designed to do two things: have low hallucination rates, but also low creativity. So if you're trying to be creative with, a marketing flyer or offering memorandum or trying to, maybe brainstorm ideas, this is not the model for you. If you want factual information, factual data back, which is a lot of times is what we want in real estate, right? We want to, do you want it to get creative with, market reports. Well, no, we would just want the facts of where it is. Do we want it to get creative with lease abstracts? No, we want just the facts again. So this is where a fantastic model for that. And so you can go ahead and grab information off the internet, load it in. And the other great thing about it is that it only pulls from the sources that you provide to it. It's not going to grab things out of the internet and make things up, or it's not going to grab from other external sources and maybe muddy the waters of your outputs. What you'll notice here is I've got, Atlanta, and I've got the 2025 Q1 report for Atlanta office. Well, I've got 10 sources, and what you'll notice is if I'm going to talk to it at all, it's only going to pull from those 10 sources. And let's say, here I've got maybe 2 reports. I only want to pull from one of those reports. If I unclick that, what you'll notice is immediately it says, well, now I've got 9 sources. And I don't want this one. I'm going to have 8 sources, right? And so it's only going to utilize those sources that you pull into it, which is fantastic when you really want to narrow down the tools and the information. And once again, it's really just going to give you, and let's just say, what are the current economic trends and their impact on Atlanta office? It's only going to pull from those sources once again, and give you an output. The other great thing, and this is pretty much across the board with a lot of these, whenever it gives you outputs and more defined outputs, I would say, it's going to cite the sources. Going back to that intern analogy, if an intern brings you a report, and let's say, their first time on the job, right? Each time you prompt an LLM, it's their first time on the job. If you had an intern, it was their first time on the job, even though they're super smart, you're probably going to check their work, aren't you? You're not going to take that report and immediately hand it to your client. You're going to check the work. The same thing with large language models, trust but verify. And so when you're going through these things, they give you citations. And so you can click on these and it tells you exactly where in the report that you're going to find this information, where it's pulling this data from. It's not making it up. You want to make sure that it's not making it up. And so you click on these citations and find out exactly where it was talking about these things. Okay. You can discover sources. So by the way, you can add into this anything from the Google Suite. So once again, it's all incorporated into the Google Suite, YouTube videos, websites. You can just copy and paste in text here. If you've got the upgraded, you get to put in up to 300 sources. So let's say you've got a shopping center with 250 leases in it. You can drop those into this and then query and find out information about your leases. If you have the free version, you can upload up to 50, I believe was the last count, 50. You can also discover sources. So I said it wasn't connected to the internet. It's not pulling its outputs from the internet. But if you want to try to find sources, for example, let's say instead of Atlanta office market, or even now Q1, I guess that's a little dated. I think a lot of the Q2, please grab I want Atlanta market reports, Atlanta office market reports, office market reports for Q2 2025. Let's say I'm updating it. Maybe I'm keeping a running tab on office market reports in this area. So I want office market reports, and I'll hit submit here. What it'll do, I want Atlanta office market reports. I wonder what's happening. Oh, just had a little hiccup there. What it'll do is it'll go out, and it's using Google, obviously, and it'll grab a whole bunch of sources from the internet. I can choose which ones I want to add to my sources. So, right now it's got all of them selected. It pulled 8 of them, but let's say, I don't necessarily want all these. I don't know who Partners Real Estate is. I do know who Avison Young is. I trust their data. Maybe Cushman Wakefield, I trust them, JLL, Civils, and Newmark. Maybe those are the ones that I want to add to it. Well, now I've got 5 sources. It's only going to upload those sources into my sources. And so that's the way that that one works. The other functionality that I really like about it is mind mapping. So if you click on the mind map, oh, it's generating a new one. Let me show you one that I've used in the past. Oops, not that one. I was teaching in Turkey, so you'll have to mind me. Uh, I have it in Turkish there. Here's one for Buckhead. So here's Buckhead Q1 Real Estate Outlook. And what it does is it visualizes all of the data that you're trying to do here, which I really appreciate. I'm more of a visual learner. So you can click in any of these. So here's vacancy. I can click on this and now it's going to go, direct vacancy and it'll tell me information on it. I can unclick these, um, you know, undercurrents or submarket vacancy. Here's some investments. And so, this isn't a very good mind map actually, but it goes deep into those sorts of things and really gives you a great visual, in my opinion. There's other things in here. There's a lot of other tools that you can check out: study guide, FAQs, briefing doc, timeline. Once again, if you upload a whole bunch of leases in there, it'll give you a timeline of important dates that are coming up. The other cool thing that you might want to try is the audio overview. It's really neat. I would play around with it if you can. It's very unique in that it creates this sort of podcast-like thing where two people are talking over the data or sources that you put into it. So if you're talking about Atlanta office market, they're going to go into this conversation for 8 to 10 minutes on the Atlanta office market. And it's very natural language. It really sounds like you're listening to a podcast. But what I say is, think about the implications for this and the way that you can digest information or the way that you can give to clients. If a client wants to invest in Sarasota, Florida, you can grab these office market reports, create an audio, download it, send it to them and say, hey, listen to this on your way to work, as a podcast, and they can do that. Or, you can learn about anything: gardening, quantum physics, whatever it is you want. Upload the sources into a notebook, create an audio, and listen to it while you're walking the dog or something like that along those lines. Really an incredible new way of digesting information if you're an auditory learner, especially. So very good stuff. I highly recommend Notebook for a lot of reasons, and that's one of them. Okay, I apologize. I'm running out of time here, but I'd love to hear any questions that you have. David, go ahead and pull the plug if you need to on me. But if there's any questions on anything I've gone over or maybe something that you want to see, please let me know.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions for Michael?
I do, Mike Patron here. Hey, what about like underwriting, reviewing OMs, getting information on that? I know it can do some of this stuff, but what have you found? And obviously, you've probably done that as well. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, fantastic. Doing financial analysis. A lot of people don't understand that we can actually create applications through natural language. This opens up a whole new window of opportunity for commercial real estate practitioners. Um, I don't know if you've heard the term vibe coding. Uh, it's a new sort of, all the cool kids are using vibe coding now. Basically, the term means that you don't know how to code, but you can code, essentially, is what it means. And I love it for financial analysis. I love it for underwriting properties. So let's say, for example, vibe coding tools that I like right now. There's three that I use. One's Firebase Studio. So Firebase is actually part of Google's suite, which is great. So you can create things. Another one is Replit. The other one that I love is Lovable. So Lovable is the one that I found that has the least amount of issues with it, if you will. And you can create whatever it is that you want. You can create websites, you can create applications. And once again, it's all through natural language. So I'll show you one that I've created recently that goes exactly to your point, Mike. Um, if it'll load here, take it a second. It is still morning, so my computer is just waking up here. But anyway, it's once again, it's just natural language that you're talking to it. I want to create this. I want to create that. And just going through it in natural language. Let me refresh this. Sorry.
And if I may, Mike, a question that we have is we deal with a lot of properties with several leases. How do you, what do you like to use to download the leases for review of details?
I think a notebook is the best. For a couple reasons. One is for privacy issues. Notebook is they don't train their models on the data sources that you put into it. So that's one thing that's slightly different from some of the other large language models. In fact, if you're working with Notebook, just a little bit of an aside here, and let's say I'm talking with it, right? I put in a prompt here, what are the current economic trends? And it gave me an output to it. If I close out this window and I come back to Notebook, this conversation will disappear. And the reason they say that is because they don't train their models on the conversations that you have within Notebook. If you go to AI or Chat GPT and I go down, it remembers all the conversations that I have. And sometimes that's a really good thing. Like I want to pick up a conversation, that I've had with it in the past. That's great. But over here on this side, if I don't want it to, once again, be trained on my data, be trained on my sources, that's why I trust a Notebook of all of them the most, because they don't train on that data. So I upload my leases here, and then I can ask it questions, abstract those leases, do timelines, do a briefing on what, each of the different leases. It'll do sort of what's considered an abstract, if you will. You can be more defined with your prompts. But definitely Notebook is the best. There's also, there's a ton of AI specific lease abstract tools out there. You can find them if you want to. I don't use those necessarily, but I know there's a ton of them out there.
Excuse me, Mike, on that, what do you do? Download the PDF of a lease?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you just add in the lease. They take PDFs, text, markdowns. You can also upload audio. If you've got your leases already in Google Drive, you can just connect those to it. Maybe you just want to copy. You can also do, if you copy and pasted, maybe it's in a Word doc. You could copy and paste it just into here as well and use it as a source also.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Going back to the other Mike's question of it, I've created, for example, I created this DCF model. And what it is I can drop in a PDF and it will pull out some of the information. But, here's my data tab, which is right here. I add in all my data and I add in everything that I need. And then at the end, it can give me some metrics, but also I've got before tax cash flow information, I've got after tax cash flow, and then I've got a summary tab that's kind of like a dashboard that I use on this. And I create, once again, I don't know how to code. I'm a commercial real estate person, a lot like you. But what I did was I put in this prompt, and guess where I got the prompt from? I got the prompt from AI, right? I got the prompt from AI on a DCF model, and I told it exactly what I wanted it to do. And I said, ready to build the workbook. And it said, great. And it went through this process and it created this for me. And so now I can come in, I can upload the data, I can use AI to sort of extract some of the data if I want to. But I can go in, I can throw in all this information and it will do it just as if I put it into an Excel sheet. And I can iterate with this process. I can create new tabs perhaps, or maybe the OpEx is not exactly the OpEx that I want. I want to add in, I don't see snow removal. I want to add in snow removal. I would just prompt it and say, put in snow removal under the operating expenses, and it will do that for you. And then you can publish it. You can share it with other folks. Whatever it is that you want, you can go ahead and do that with it. But then the other thing is you were talking about like underwriting testing assumptions. I can take this data, connect it with another application. For example, I might pull market information from Google Gemini. And let's say another broker sends me an offering memorandum and it's got assumptions in it, right? It's got assumptions for rental growth. Well, what I can do is I can query, let's say Google Gemini. Let's talk about vacancy rates over the past 8 quarters or, 5 years, whatever it is, and say, based on that, does this make sense to have these forward-looking assumptions for this particular property? And it might say, based on the data, past data, yes, it looks, reasonable, or no, that, they're way off base, depending on the market data. Utilizing AI for that also is really fantastic. So, good questions. Thank you. Anything else before we?
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Absolutely. There's a lot of stuff out there. It's moving fast, I know. So it's good to catch up and understand some of these tools that are coming out and how to use them sometimes the best way. So
Yeah, Michael, one thing that I take Grok on my phone and
yeah.
I'll practice my scripts on it before I actually make my real phone calls. So I'll prompt it
Yeah,
and then I just have a
fantastic.
conversation with my phone just as if they're a building owner.
100%. Yeah, they're great for doing role playing. If maybe you're going into negotiations, yeah, they're fantastic for a lot of things. Yeah, great use case, David.
Well, I could spend hours asking you questions, Michael. So Mike Patron here in Sarasota. So what is the next step? Because I use a lot of these. Some of them are new. Obviously, there's tons of them out there that you can utilize, and they're just
Yeah.
addition. There's coming more and more and more and more. So if we want to dig a little bit deeper into some of this stuff, you said you had a class. Obviously, I can just go in and ask AI, of course, right?
Yeah, of course.
So what are your thoughts on, I've been using this stuff for several years already. So I'm
Sure.
this is, very kind of an introduction. So I'm kind of looking for a more advanced iteration of these things for my own personal use. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, besides, just digging into it yourself, I guess. Yes, I did put a class together. It's specific for real estate, and utilizing the one thing that I've always tried to make sure that I did was, how do you actually apply it? So, I've been in commercial real estate a long time. I've worn a lot of different hats. I was in private equity. I was a broker for 10 years. I do portfolio management now. I've done a lot on the investment analysis side, financial market. I teach market analysis. And so I kind of get it from different perspectives. So my thought process when I was putting this class together is, okay, these tools are out there, but how do I actually use them on a day-to-day basis? And that was the whole thought process behind this course. And that's why it's called implementing AI. It's not, learning about AI or anything like that. It's actually implementing it and using it. And so you can take this course if you like. I'm happy to have you along. We sort of already started, but our first live session is tomorrow on this. So there's still time to sort of hop on, if you will. But the next course is, and I'll be adding another course probably in early September, but this one's going to go through July and August. Then the end of August, I'm taking some time off, but there's 6 modules. There's the module 1 is the intro. So I go through a lot of the prompting techniques that I told you about before, LLMs, breaking those down. I also get into image generation prompting, which is a different type of prompting. I get into reasoning model prompting, which is a different type of prompting. I get into video generation prompting. We also get into a lot of other ways to sort of think about LLMs and how they're structured. So that's the intro. Module 2, it's kind of a beast. It's a big one, but it's market analysis and investment strategies. So how do we use that to understand supply, demand side characteristics? How do we get into employment base, strategies, investment strategies, and so forth. Module 3 is all about financial and investment analysis, site selection stuff. So you can get, and there's down carrots on this. So if you want to look at the individual lessons, getting into custom GPTs, and how we prompt and make those. I've got some custom analysis GPTs that I share using RAG, vibe coding, which I talked about a little bit before. I'll get into that. Module 4 is enhancing, it's all about CRM automations. So contact management. Basically, it's about how do we stay in better contact with our clients or better business development, and how do we automate some of those processes? Because I always say, we don't get into real estate because we love doing data entry into CRMs, right? That's not why we get in. We get in because we like dealing with people. We like solving problems. We like, closing deals. Those are the things we want to do. So if we can take some of those data entry things and automate them and get them off our plate, or at least make them easier to do, that's, I think, helpful. It helps you make money. I've got operational efficiencies. Once again, that's more along the lines of automating some of our business processes behind. So utilizing chatbots, phone agents. I get into Zap. So that's how we do it, and stand out from the crowd, if you will, in a way. Phone agents. I get into Zapier features, webhooks. Once again, visualizing automations. There's a lot there. And then the last one is sort of bringing it all together into this marketing strategies. Sort of thinking outside the box of your traditional PDFs, your static PDFs. I want you to think about different ways that we can utilize some of the tools that are available to us in AI to be creative, sort of stand out from the crowd, if you will, in a way, break through the noise of what, traditionally we've done in the past. So that's all about our AI strategies. So there's over 120 lessons. There's 3 hours of video content as well. There's 6 1-hour sessions. So what we do is I unlock. So this past week, module 1 was unlocked, and you work through it at your own pace. And then at the end of the week, we do a 1-hour live session where I go into a deep dive. We answer questions, go back and forth, and really just, talk about that week's information, and then the same process for the next 6 weeks. So that's how we do it, and happy to have you come along for the ride if you want to, and otherwise, feel free to reach out to me, and happy to get you set up for the next one if you want as well.
Thank you, Michael. I think that was good. And for all the CREA members on the call right now, we did record this, and eventually we'll get it on our YouTube page. So if you want to share with members in your office, it'll be available sometime down the road. So if there's no other questions, I just want to say thanks to Michael. Thanks to everybody that logged on, and we will see you guys next month. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.